All right, welcome back to another episode of Just Buy Less Coffee, answering the deeper questions of American politics. My name is Troy, aka Keep Troy Blue. With me, as always, is Cathy Cannon, aka Cannon's Fodder. We got a pretty good show for you here today. How are you, Cathy, on a Saturday morning?
I know. I have color-coded notes. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Very excited.
Back to our deep dive series, kicking that off today. Patreon exclusive deep dive series going on. So if you're not subscribed to our Patreon, you want to head over to patreon.com/justbuylesscoffee. Subscribe, $5 a month, and you can get access to our new subscriber only deep dive series. So we're going to be kicking that off today. So it's going to be really exciting.
Yeah.
You know who else is having an exciting day is the Senate staffer. And I can't even pronounce this, like Aiden Mace Shaproshi. I don't
know. I didn't look it up because I saw that in the outline, and I literally wrote underneath it, "Wait, what?" And I knew there was going to be a story there for me, so
This just came out. I think it was like this is a new addition to the outline because it just came out like last night. But this is a male Senate staffer of Senator Ben Cardin, who apparently got a little frisky in one of the Senate hearing rooms, like a Senate Judiciary hearing room, just completely wearing lingerie. This is a dude wearing lingerie, getting completely railed by another dude and just like filming it. Just alone in this like Senate hearing room, lights on. I'm not really sure. It must have been in the middle of the night or something. They figured no one would walk in. But they went ahead and just filmed themselves having a fun old time there in this Senate room, getting really, really nasty. So it's that's just all over the all over the MAGA today. Is it's the Democratic deviance, if you will. But this is just wow. You do you, boo boo.
I am like, for those watching, you can probably see like that I went to Catholic school in this moment. I'm so like simultaneously
like lobster red right now,
furious and like horrified. Like my little Victorian heart just like shame of it all. But what the fuck?
Like what?
Because okay, here's how stupidly innocent I am sometimes, because I hadn't seen like that you'd added to it. All I saw was the headline earlier, right, when I was looking at it, because then I had to go do the dog calamity. So when I saw Senate staffer gets railed, I thought like because of the tensions in Congress, I thought it meant railed like, like ass beat, but I didn't.
Whoa, you didn't realize it was a sex thing?
I should have perhaps, but wozer bozer, way to show. Wow, okay, that's how we open the show today.
No, railed, like he was bent over a table.
No, I got it now. Now I'm up to speed. Yeah. Thanks.
I mean, my question. Okay, I get it. This is the like cell phone era.
I don't know what to tell you.
If you want to like sneak into if that's your kink, if Irene used to say. Irene used to say we don't kink shame, but we do kink ask why. If that's your kink to like, if you want to get your freak on in like an official room or whatever, that's fine. But like, make it a quickie. Like, don't film it and don't like get dressed up for it. He was in lingerie.
But like that's probably part of the kink, right? So like I have questions is what it is, but also I don't want to admit that I have those questions because then I feel like I have to go light a candle at the church.
Maybe we could do your questions on Patreon. Maybe we can do that for subscribers.
No, maybe because the whole thing, I just feel like I have to. Where's my rosary beads, right? Like I feel like I need my.
Maybe we could do a like weirdest place we've ever boned.
Let's not do that. Let's not. I veto. I am the United States at the United Nations. Fucking veto.
My question is, what's worst for you in terms of decorum? And let's be clear, like this guy should be fired. I don't care that he's a Democrat. He's clearly like not fit to work.
I didn't even hear the party. I was just too embarrassed being, approved over here.
This staffer, I'm surprised he hasn't been fired yet. But my question is on decorum, what's worse, like boning in the Senate hearing room or being Lauren Boebert and giving handies in Beetlejuice with little kids sitting around you? What's your vote on that?
I'm giving it some consideration, right? Because like
I mean, that's my point, is like if you would just wanted to run it and do like a little quickie, real quick. I mean, it's DC, like people get freaky all over DC, but like, come on, don't film it. And how did like My question is, who's the
First of
other
all, if you
dude?
work
It's
in
only we only know
politics,
about the one dude. Who's the dude behind the camera?
that's kind of okay. Where I land on this is like I'm actually going to give Bobo the break here and not this guy because the cardinal rule of politics is don't film yourself doing stupid shit, right? Like that's
Yeah,
numero uno. Philip Hart, what's his name? Gary Hart taught us that, right?
Gary
Gary
Hart.
Hart
Yeah,
back in the fucking 90s taught us that. And he didn't even actually do something. He just had a lady, like he just had a photograph. Bobo didn't know she was being recorded, like she should have known. There's that element, but like
yeah.
homeboy set himself up for failure here. She's a hapless idiot. So
I feel like this is a case of this dude just wanting to get caught. Absolutely.
maybe getting caught is you know what? I don't like I said, I am a Catholic girl. I'm gonna stop talking right now.
Well,
I
Cathy's
will
super
light a
embarrassed.
candle at the grotto later. It's just fun.
We continue the railing conversation in the
No,
Senate
absolutely not.
in
Nope.
the Patreon, perhaps.
Jesus
Oh
Christ.
boy, that's
That's a
really
go.
whatever you got to do.
I feel
Whatever
like
you
I'm
got to
gonna
do.
be explaining this conversation to like an employer one day.
You didn't do anything wrong. You were just
I
talking
know, but even still, like, Luke, you don't understand. Catholic guilt is deeply ingrained.
about.
It's fine. That's
Well, anyway,
fine.
I hope
That's a
this
good way
guy
to
gets.
open the show.
I hope
It's
this guy
cool.
gets fired, just because like this is not what we need right now. By the way, it's just like more. First, we had the the woman flashing her tits on the White House lawn, then the cocaine in the White House. That like it's just like, come on, you guys. Like,
You know what, man?
can we not like these unforced like sexual errors are getting sexual
Sign
lifestyle errors are getting
of
stupid.
the times, man. Yeah, like you're just joking. Like, here's the thing: you're just naive to think that this shit doesn't happen all the
Oh, of
time.
course.
It's just like, bro,
Don't film yourself doing it.
right? Like, what the fuck is the matter? Like, what happened to the phrase plausible deniability? Right? I've lived and died on that little technicality.
Well, anyway, there is a tape circulating if you wanted to go watch it.
Nope, I'm good. Thanks.
So the Supreme Court, and this is just giving a lot of like closeted Republicans the opportunity to watch some gay porn because they have to watch
with
it
an
and
excuse,
analyze it.
Mike Johnson can tell his son, no.
Yeah,
Okay, don't
yeah.
worry.
It'll show up on Mike Johnson's phone, and he'll have
This
to
is for
unblur it.
work.
It's for work. I have to watch this. I have to watch this for work.
And then, like, when the son gets caught watching, be like, "No, Dad, I'm just curious what you do." Right?
I'm curious about your office,
I
your
want
place
to know
of work.
what your job is all about, Daddy. Can
I had
I
to
go to work
analyze
with
this.
you?
I had to analyze this video for an hour in the bathroom.
And then, like, Jim Jordan will be like, "Yeah, you should bring your son." I'm just going down a rabbit hole here. I'm going to stop before I
Oh,
get
good
myself
Lord.
into some trouble. Yep, I'm going to just go ahead and shut
Supreme
up.
Court has agreed to take up a bunch of different cases, including the Mifepristone case, Fifth Circuit earlier this year. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, that's the one in Texas, decided to ban or at least put like crazy restrictions on the abortion pill mifepristone. Was appealed to SCOTUS. We weren't sure if SCOTUS was going to take it up, but they have, which is at first glance good news, because if they hadn't have taken it up, the Fifth Circuit's ruling would have stood, and they'd put a lot of restrictions on it. But then, obviously it's this court, so then you have to, after the initial relief that the Fifth Circuit's ruling isn't gonna stand necessarily, then you have to start worrying about what this court is going to do on the abortion pill. More than 50% of abortions are the abortion pill. It's actually a pill series. You can take, it's just very early in pregnancy. You take the pill series, and you don't need a procedural abortion. You don't need a surgical abortion. Kind of, you'd think that people would be okay with that because the baby or the fetus is so nothing at that point that a pill is able to take care of it, and there's minimal risk. But SCOTUS is going to hear the mifepristone case after saying that the Dobbs decision was their sort of last hurrah in the field of abortion, that they were going to leave it up to the states. Now they are taking up another national abortion case. So what are your thoughts on this one, Cathy, on the future of mifepristone?
Well, first of all, who the fuck should be? No, nobody should be surprised by this, because of course, like, abortion was always their starting line, never their end game. We all tried to tell you. It's fine. Whatever. Talk for another day. First, I'll say the Fifth Circuit has become like the Federalist Society spring training court.
They
you know
suck.
what it is? Yeah, like it's the, like every wacko judge that the like hardcore what are they? I guess technically a think tank, right? Is that what they call themselves?
Well, the Heritage Fund, yeah, it's technically a think tank, but yeah,
a think tank, which has always just amazed me that
they're not a think tank. They're just a fucking anyway. Yeah.
What does that even mean, think tank? Like, I know, but also, what the fuck, right? Like, they say influencer is a made up job. Think tank? Fuck you. Okay.
100% agree.
But yeah, like you know what you know the ruling coming out of a Fifth Circuit, right? Whatever the Federalist Society or the Heritage Foundation or the Cato Institute would be pleased with, right? That's basically, do you write the opinions we want you to write? That is what the Fifth Circuit exists for. So nobody
Yeah.
should be surprised that it's Texas bringing this up, because Texas also same fucking.
Anytime you ever hear about some like back ass word, ruling, like we just made, taking we just made gay dating illegal. That was probably the Fifth Circuit. The Fifth Circuit like approved the fucking like murder buoys in the Rio Grande or whatever. So they're the most
I
back
had
ass words
forgotten about
appeals
that, but
circuit
yeah.
in the country.
Yeah, they're fucking terrible. Like, anything
Yeah.
draconian that you hear about in the news, you could double down on a 20 if you would, right? Like, it came from the Fifth Circuit. Um, but all like my initial thinking in this story is always the Commerce Clause, baby, because this is where the factions of the Republican Party start to tear themselves apart in the court that they've built for themselves. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
um, the strange bedfellows that have made up the Republican Party are all now kind of having to figure out that they don't get along. Like, they had this alliance for power. Now they have that power, and it's very much like the Republican Cold War. So,
Mhm.
like, Churchill, FDR, and Stalin all worked together to take down the Nazis, right? But thereafter, all they wanted to do was fight for power. So the industrialist business, fiscal conservatives, as they once called themselves, are going to be really pissed, because myth of Pristone is, I always feel like I say that wrong when I say, did I say it? I said it right,
Yeah,
right?
that was right.
Okay. Um, is a big money maker,
Well,
right?
yeah.
That's the thing with drugs, is that drugs are easier to sell than procedures. And if I, and
Well, yeah.
I want to preface this with, I know how cynical this is going to sound. Okay. But how, like, in political science, they force you to learn how to, like, argue the point of view of the people you disagree with.
Yeah.
Like, the best way to make them agree with you is to say you understand them. So it's like, if I am now in the body of one of those business conservatives, right? Where I could see this probably landing is, I think this will be okay. Like, I don't think the court will strike this one down. Like, I think we'll still be able to get the medication, I mean, because of kind of what you said, right? Like, this is the non-offensive type of abortion. This is the, you can keep this very quiet kind of abortion. This is the nobody needs to know about it kind of abortion, right? In the way that a procedure isn't. And procedures cost insurance companies money, but medicine make pharmaceutical companies money. So I
Yeah.
see why they'd be willing to outlaw a procedure that costs them money, but protect a drug that makes them money, especially when banning the procedure also creates a, you know, lower level workforce that you can later exploit for further profits. So I think the drug will be fine.
I mean, these are the same people that have talked about banning contraception. So I don't even know if there is a level of like,
Well, that's the wacko birds. Like, no, like, like,
I know, but this, if they're willing to ban contraception, which stops you from getting pregnant, and they're able to say that that's somehow like an abortion, taking it to the next level and wiping out a pregnancy with a pill has got to be. But what, like you said, this is the reason, the rationale behind this is, and what the Fifth Circuit ruled was, that this pill is not safe. The FDA approved this pill like 20 years ago, but they
yeah.
recently allowed it to be used on a much more rapid basis, including having it being sent to people discreetly in the mail. So you can like send away for this abortion pill. And that's kind of the whole crux of it. And that's why it's so effective and what it's so widely used. It's because you don't have to go to a doctor. You don't have to get a prescription. You don't have to expose anything. It's really, like you said, discreet.
Mhm.
No one needs to know about it. The FDA approved the sort of rush version of it. That's what's being challenged. So what the Fifth Circuit ruled was an effective ban by taking away the discrete mail-in portion of it. The Fifth Circuit said you had to actually go into a doctor and get a prescription, which doesn't sound like a big deal unless you're in a state where there's a blanket blanket banning on abortions. You can't go in and ask for an abortion pill in Missouri or Texas, right? Because the doctor's not going to risk prosecution for prescribing you an abortion pill in a state where it's outright banned.
Yeah,
Then
and I
there's
don't know that
the
there's many places that you can get it over the counter to begin with, you know what I mean?
I
Like,
mean, then there's the discrete factor. I mean, of having, 16-year-old girl going into a doctor's office and asking for an abortion pill. There's the stigma factor that comes along with that. So they're able to couch this in sort of, it's not actually being banned. We're just making it safer when truthfully it is an effective ban. They also
yeah,
dropped the period of gestation where you can legally use it from 75 days to, I believe, 48 days.
but they wouldn't have
Um,
done that without testing it, you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing, like, it makes me
yeah.
mad, it makes me crazy, but that's where I say that I think this will land on the Commerce Clause, right?
Okay.
Because, um, the federal government has the right to regulate interstate commerce, and if the federal government has to equally protect the states and their laws, right? So, like, will Texas's law impact the economic, interests of another state? Yes.
Hmm.
Right? So if there's like where I don't know where the drug makers are stationed or where the factories are stationed where that like will people lose their jobs
Right.
because of this ruling, right? And because you can argue that abortion providers won't because there's always if you're abortion provider, you're a doctor that you're a women's health doctor. There's other things for you to do. It's
Right.
right. But, like, if you're a factory that produces this drug, like, sure, in theory, you could, but is there gonna be a transition time? Yes. Will you have to lay off workers? Yes. Will your sales be impacted by one of the largest states in the country no longer being able to buy like, all they have to
Right.
do is be able to point to the amount of money that actually comes out of the state of Texas that buys this pill. Your drug is directly impacting my business. The Commerce Clause gives that to the federal government. Sorry, Texas. The federal
Right.
government can overrule you here.
It's
So
interesting. Yeah.
supremacy in commerce. Hamilton was onto something because
It's
he
interesting.
wanted
It's
to
just like,
take on
again,
the
it comes
industry.
back to this court and what this court is willing to do. And it's starting to get a little terrifying because now we're looking at banning this again. More than 50% of all abortions are done with a pill. It just kind of, but again, it strikes at the heart of sort of the Republican argument that this is like, you know, dead babies lying in metal trays or babies being ripped apart. It's like, no,
No, that's not it.
most of abortions are just taken care of with a pill. But yeah, it's interesting. But speaking of SCOTUS, so there was a New York Times SCOTUS on abortion. There was a New York Times expose released this week, investigation piece on sort of the behind the scenes moves of SCOTUS in the lead up to the Dobbs decision in what was it,
Mhm.
2022?
I
Yeah,
don't know. It's all been a fever dream, Troy.
it's been a blur. I think it was June of 2022 when that ruling officially came
I
out.
think so, yeah.
But the leak happened
In
a couple
April
months
or
before, like in May or something, or April.
somewhere around there, yeah, April or May.
So this New York Times piece is very interesting, and it talks about sort of the behind the scenes baseball of what was going on in
Mhm.
the court, um, prior to the lead up of the leak and then the official decision. So apparently, what was going on? Apparently, there was a lot of tension surrounding this Dobbs ruling. Initially, most of the justices didn't want to hear a challenge to Roe v. Wade, but it only takes 4 justices on the Supreme Court to hear a case. The Supreme Court elects which cases they hear. It only takes 4 justices to say, I want to hear
Rule of
that
4.
case.
The kids should know that.
And guess which 4 it was? It was the 4 right wing men on the court that took up Roe v. Wade. Apparently, Amy Coney Barrett voted against taking up Roe v. Wade, which was interesting because I remember Amy Coney Barrett took Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat. She was supposed to be the like conservative woman who would,
Mhm.
was kind of designed to hear cases like this. Apparently, she didn't want to touch Roe v. Wade,
That doesn't surprise me at all, Troy.
but it was Alito, Thomas, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh
Yep. Knock
that
me over with a feather, right? Knock me
decided to take up the challenge to Roe v. Wade. And you had thoughts on the Amy Coney Barrett thing, the fact that she didn't want to hear it initially. She
Mhm.
didn't want to even touch Roe v. Wade.
Correct. And of course she didn't because ideologically she has her position on this. Religiously she has her position on this, but she's also a woman and she's also not
Yeah.
stupid. Okay. And like we've said, like the overturning of Roe has shifted a lot of conservative women on this issue that liked to say they were against it, but in the end of the day are pretty pissed about this. Um, and to me, and the best analogy I'm going to make here is that Amy Coney Barrett is, for all intents and purposes, metaphorically speaking, Serena Waterford. Um,
Okay, explain
and
that.
easy. So you know who that is, right, Troy?
Actually,
I don't know.
I don't. You have to refresh my memory.
She
I saw you
is
wrote that down, and I was like, "Who?"
For those who love The Handmaid's Tale,
Oh,
right?
Handmaid's Tale. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Handmaid's Tale. She is the wife of Commander Waterford.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so the basically the storyline is that she was a hardcore conservative woman that pushed all of these like crazy oppressive policies for women. But what you learn throughout the show is that she very much thought that she would be excluded from those policies, considering that she was part of the boys' club, right? And she learns very quickly that that wasn't the case, and like comes to like regret her involvement and try to like join the revolution, if you will. Right now, I'm
Hmm.
not saying she's there, but I'm saying the way you put it, right? Like I read the article, maybe where I got it. Roberts and Coney Barrett didn't want to touch it. It was the four guys. Breyer and Roberts were like off on the side trying to
Yeah,
negotiate a compromise, right, at a 15-week ban, that the liberal judges wouldn't have wanted, but the conservative judges might have been willing to like land on.
yeah. They
And
got
this is
so desperate then
mm,
when it started to look like Roe was going to be overturned. They got so desperate that they were trying to push this like national 15-week
yep,
alternative,
yep.
which even
Um,
Breyer, who's a liberal, would get behind just because he was so terrified of losing Roe.
just because he was terrified of like right, like it's better than the alternative. And this is where I come back to the point that Roberts has lost control of his
Oh
court
yeah,
as far as Chief Justice
it's
goes. He has
Alito's court by now.
right, and like I think I've said it before, I'll say it again. Like the shame of this court can only be rectified with Roberts resigning as Chief Justice,
Hmm.
um, because no, he has no control of this court. And then once like the opinion leaked, all the negotiations were over, right? Because it was basically done. Um,
Yeah,
but like the fact that she didn't want to hear the case, she would have probably gotten behind the 15-week ban for the same reason Breyer and Tom or Roberts, sorry, would have. But when it came down to the vote, I think the way they put it in the article, or maybe the way you put it in the outline, I can't remember. She went with the boys,
hmm,
right? And that's what put the thought in my head. Like that's essentially what this is that she thinks if she can agree with them long enough, if she does what they want, even when she tries to avoid it, she's somehow going to stay above the fray. Like she won't be impacted by this. She'll still be accepted.
yeah,
That's where I think she's landing on it, right? Which is why I think on this case, she's gonna try and like again, her and Roberts, whatever, but they might win Kavanaugh on this because he's a little bit in bed with, pharmaceutical companies.
Are you talking
And
about Murphy Presto?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, so
Like
she.
basically my point, I think sorry, I just like this popped into my head. The real question on this case is going to be on all of this, who has more power of the Republican Party, the religious wing or the insurance
The
companies
insurance,
and
yeah,
and the pharmaceutical companies? Like, whew, battle of titans right there, don't you think?
yeah. So Barrett was hoping they wouldn't touch it. They did anyway. Alito circulate, but after they heard the case and they were making their decision, Alito circulated a 98-page opinion overturning Roe. The three other conservative men signed on to the opinion within a day. I heard someone say 10 minutes. I feel like that might have been exaggerated, but it was certainly within a day, so indicating that they had already read it or didn't care. So they signed on immediately to this decision overturning Roe. Like you said, Breyer and
Yeah.
Roberts were freaking the fuck out and trying to come up with a compromise deal on a 15-week ban, which, by the way, we just saw with
Mhm.
Kate Cox that a 15-week ban wouldn't have stopped the Kate Cox scenario, which is why we've been saying that 15-week bans are bullshit.
Yeah.
Kate Cox was 20 weeks along, so a 15-week ban doesn't do anything. But again, Breyer was so freaked out about losing Roe that
Mhm.
they were desperately trying to pitch this like 15-week alternative, and they were overruled because
Mhm.
Barrett went with the boys. She, after initially not wanting to hear the case, she went on and signed on to the opinion overturning Roe v. Wade. And if you remember, it was basically like 5-4 ish.
Mhm.
Roberts kind of stuck by his concurring opinion on the 15-week. Didn't really. I think he voted. I think the official vote was 5-4 with Roberts voting in the majority, but I
I
think
thought
he
it
sort
was
of
6-3.
was it.
I honestly think it was.
Was oh yeah 6-3, but Roberts cast as sort of like a protest vote with his concurring opinion. He didn't, he
I
backed it,
think
but it was
so.
sort of a soft back.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And that's what I always have kind of pointed to on it is that that's why they needed the 6-3. That's why
Right.
McConnell played his
Yeah,
hand, right?
6-3.
Because you don't overturn 50 years of civil rights on a 5-4 vote, right? Like
Yeah.
Brown v. Board was unanimous, Roe v. Wade in the first place was 7-2, right? So
Yeah.
they needed the 6-3 and they knew what they did. So
So and then like you said, the leak. So then the Dobbs decision was leaked, and that sort of killed negotiations between the two sides. overturn Roe in the 15-week compromise side. So we still don't know who that leaker was, but that leak had the effect of basically just shut down the court, and they weren't able to communicate, and everybody was so stunned by that leak that basically nothing. It sort of froze the court in place with the overturning of Roe decision as the default. And all negotiations stopped. So we still don't know who the leaker was. I don't know. Cathy has some thoughts on that.
It's Alito. Honestly, I think it's Alito because he's just enough of a shit stir to do that. Like finding out that Roberts and Breyer were negotiating a 15-week thing, and he's been drooling over this forever. Has, right? And that's why I think if Roberts and Breyer were getting close to moving people on 15 weeks, I could see Alito releasing it himself, or Thomas, or Ginny, because Thomas is showing her everything. So it's that little triangle of evil. It came from one of them.
Oh God, Ginny, Thomas, Alito, three-way action happening. But yeah, I mean, it's just disturbing. And the thing is, like, again, Alito and Thomas are incredibly corrupt. And that their reasoning behind that ruling was based more on their being wined and dined by conservative donors and benefactors than it was any sort of like moral judgment. But yeah, absolutely, just horrifying to see the behind the scenes on that.
Which means the pharmaceutical company is about to be doing the same to save their profits. So
I think you might be onto something, though. At the end of the day, this is really going to be the test. Is at the end of the day, do they side with the sort of evangelical Christians or the pharmaceuticals?
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, I think it's evangelical Christians. I think this party's completely lost its goddamn mind.
I think with Mike Johnson in the House, I think you might be right. But like with Kevin McCarthy, I think Big Pharma would have won. So I don't know. Who knows? Who the hell knows? But I know. Woof. Yeah, that's what I know.
So anyway, just crazy shit going on. So a couple other stories. Rudy Giuliani, smacked with $148 million judgment on the Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss case. This was the case of Rudy and pals harassing these two election workers in Georgia, Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, to the point where they were getting death threats and just had their lives completely ruined because they were trying to get these women to sign on to this election interference scheme that was happening in Georgia. The jury awarded $16.1 million in compensatory damages to Freeman. Ruby Freeman is Shay Moss's mother, by the way, his mother-daughter. 16.1 in compensatory damages to Freeman, 16.9 million in compensatory damages to Shay Moss, 20 million each for intentional infliction of emotional distress, and 75 million in punitive damages. Unanimous decision among the 8 jurors. They had asked for 24 million in actual damages, but said they would leave it up to the jury. So yeah, but again, Freeman and Moss testifying on separate days about the horrifying detail about the racist death threats they were receiving. There were a lot of people saying that they were going to be lynched. Blah 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 blah.
It's so gross, man.
So absolutely crazy. Rudy doesn't have a lot of money left before this $148 million suit going against him. The final chapter in what has become just an absolute disgraceful existence for this man.
Yeah, well, one hell of a fall from grace, that's for fucking sure, right? Like, woof. Woof is the word of the day. Like, if this was Pee-wee's Playhouse. But yeah,
Pee-wee's
in 20 years, he went from America's mayor to literally a dirtbag. Like, literally a dirtbag. And I have to wonder if he sits and rues the day he got into bed with Donald Trump. You know what I mean?
I don't think he's been asked that a few times if he regretted it. He said no.
Well, publicly, you know how these men are. They got a safe face. They'll double down on any level of bullshit to try and save a reputation they think is salvageable. But this guy, he's got nothing left to salvage, right? I thought he had hit his low with the hair dye streaming down his sweaty face in front of
farting on Jenna Ellis.
Yeah, but my God, did he prove me wrong? He is good at finding a new low. That's what he is excelling at here lately.
He remember when he was in that Sacha Baron Cohen movie and he was
I never saw it because I just didn't want to, because as we established at the onset of this program,
We have not done enough embarrassed Cathy moments in the last few weeks.
No,
We have to
I
get them
feel
all in
like
today before the holidays.
I think we've done a very good job. I think we're
Somebody on the internet today was saying if Rudy Giuliani was a drink, what would the name be? And I said it would be Rudy Giuliani. The man's body's 40% alcohol by volume at this
that's
point. Anyway.
actually pretty funny. But who would drink that? Honestly, nobody's gonna drink that. I would say it would be a Bay Breeze made with ruby pink grapefruit juice.
Oh, you just made it like delicious. I think that the Rudy Giuliani cocktail would be like absolutely disgusting.
Mhm.
I think it would taste like whatever is in his hair dye.
It would have to have like a bald umbrella though, right? Like
Oh,
like
okay,
a
there you
like
go.
like a
There you go.
coconut umbrella to like represent the hair dye, you know? The
Just
I'll have a drink. I'll have a drink recipe ready to go.
Oh yeah. Everybody submit their ideas for the
The
best
Rudy
Rudy
Giuliani.
Giuliani cocktail mix. We can read out the best ones on the show. And I submit that it has to be like the worst, most disgusting cocktail ever.
I feel like it has to be in like that copper tin that you drink the Moscow Mule in, right? Just for the irony's sake.
Yeah,
That's what's
but what an absolute disgrace. Now he's broke and he's just probably gonna. His son is running for office or is in office or something like that in New York. But yeah, Rudy's just a total
I remember him
scumbag.
running or doing something, but I remember him being a weird dude, so I don't know whatever came of it.
Yeah, but anyway, good for Freeman and Moss for taking this dude to the cleaners.
Good on you.
Jury was out for like a day and a half. Everybody was freaking out. I was like, "Oh Jesus Christ! I should take the jury this long to figure this out." But yeah, they
I
it
think
was
what took them a long time was settling on a number,
probably.
like to try to justify the
It
number they
was
came up
like
with. Yeah.
a lot of money or an
Mhm,
extra lot of money that they were
mhm.
trying to debate, not whether or not he was guilty or not.
Yep, yep.
So let's take a little break right now. So once again, subscribe to us on Patreon, patreon.com/just buy less coffee. We are going to be starting again our deep dive series. Only the deep dives are going to be, again, the deep dives are going to be in a series. You're going to want to sign on to Patreon because Patreon is going to get access to those. The general public will probably not get access to most of the deep dive content. So if you want, Cathy's got like reams of notes. What are we talking about today, Cathy, in this deep dive for folks so they can.
This one we're going to talk about how and why the Democratic Party fell apart, with a little bit
Ooh.
of a foreshadow for why we need to kind of all calm down come 2024, right? Like we've been here before, and last time we fucked it up. So I'm going to ask us to not do that this time, with a lesson in party politics. And when I say lesson, I mean like I'm going to teach it to you the way I teach it to the kids, with a little less censored for classroom, right? Like it's
Ooh, all
literally
right.
content wise exactly what I would give the kids, but flavored for an internet audience.
Okay, sounds
Which
good.
means I won't have to put marbles in the jar when I actually swear this time, right?
Cathy's deep dives talking about the history of sort of like Democratic Party Civil War. It's going to be a series for our Patreon subscribers. Just head on over to Patreon and subscribe today if you want to hear that. Also, video content for the regular episodes on YouTube. Just buy less coffee. You can catch the regular non-subscriber episodes. You can see the video. You see our mugs. You can see how red Cathy gets when we talk about like lingerie, gay sex in the Senate.
Not just anything that I would be uncomfortable hearing in front of a nun. There's always a nun on my shoulder. You gotta
Oh
remember.
boy, that's horrifying. That's way more horrifying than gay sex in the Senate. So
Sister Catherine,
Republican.
she scared me.
My friend went to Catholic school when she was a teenager. She said one of the nuns used to say that she would see Jesus like amongst her breasts, like at night.
They're brides of Christ. You didn't know that, man?
They are brides. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just interesting stuff. Republicans open impeachment inquiry into Biden this week without evidence, without hard evidence. Can we just say, like, okay, we get that Hunter Biden is a shit, that he's not a good guy or hasn't been a good guy historically, but the fact that Hunter Biden has had a complex, challenging, rough life, done a lot of stupid things, is not grounds to impeach Joe Biden. Like they cannot. They're obsessed with this Hunter thing. This started, as internet rumors years ago. It's come to fruition with the knowledge that Hunter Biden had a drug addiction, was engaging in a lot of illicit activity. again, not a grounds to impeach Joe Biden. So I don't know. They're totally grasping at straws here. They have a lot of payments. They've uncovered a lot of payments between Hunter Biden and his father. A lot of it has been repayments for loans. At one point, he was paying back a truck that Joe had bought Hunter in the height of his addiction because he was out of cash. He's trying to get Hunter back on like a line of credit, paying off this truck. So just a lot of just there's just nothing there. Republicans have admitted that there was absolutely nothing there. This is 100% a political move designed to, one, to rile up the MAGA base, and two, because Mike Johnson needs to present something to the MAGA side of his caucus, but also just designed to hurt Biden's poll numbers and make it seem like Biden's up to no good. But just there's just nothing there.
This one has been hilarious to me just because, like, the kids, I tricked them into watching the news and like caring about stuff, right? But now I've put myself into the precarious position of having to explain the news when it's weird, right? So they came in the other day, they're like, "Miss, what's this about?" And I tell them like all of the information we have, and they're like, "So what did he do wrong?" I'm like, I tell you the guy, my answer has been, I guess that's what the inquiry will tell us, right? That's my like safe eggshelly dance answer. But like, holy shit, I was
Milk
seeing this,
toast.
and like every time I read about this, I think I laugh to myself because I'm like, if they pulled the financial records between my mother and I while I was in undergrad, in quite smaller amounts, to be fair, they would see this. Like, "Mom, can I borrow $300? I'll pay you back, I swear." Right? And like the funniest part is my mom has a whole drawer of checks that I have written her that say like "don't cash until," that she still has because when that date showed up, I'm like, "Oh, don't cash that, mom." Like it's a kid in a fucked up situation with a parent that cares enough to throw them a lifeline. That's what it
Yeah,
is. And
yeah,
his fucked up situations had big price tags because his fucked up situations were big and expensive fuck ups. And he lives in a more expensive version of the world than a lot of us, what with his father being once a senator, then a vice president, and currently a president. So, your life gets a little more expensive in those scenarios. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
um,
It's not like no one has ever in the history of politics ever used their like famous father or mother for their own personal advancement.
what was the line that John F. Kennedy's dad said? Like, "I'll buy you the election, but I'm not buying a landslide," right? Like, and that's not
That's
this.
funny.
That's like, here's your car payment, kid. Learn how to pay your bills, right? Like, Joe Biden is guilty, perhaps, of enabling his son, but the best
He's
of us
yeah.
have been there,
He's guilty of like being a good. They continually just prove that he's guilty of is being a good dad. It was like when Fox News aired that phone call that they'd uncovered of him like telling Hunter that he loved him and he needed to get help, and they were like, "Oh, Joe Biden is supporting Hunter's
Drug
addiction."
use,
Blah,
yeah,
blah, blah.
no, like the worst case is that inadvertently enabling, right? Like not being hard enough on him. But anybody who's ever known anybody in the throes of addiction or alcoholism knows that being hard on them is not easy to do, and it doesn't always work, and sometimes it makes things worse, right? You dance through a lot of strategies when you're trying to talk people down from these things, and that call may have been a very sympathetic one, but you haven't heard all of the calls over the many years that like this scenario has been playing out because you're not a drug addict for a little bit of time. You're a drug
Yeah.
addict forever. And I just it to me, I don't know.
For what it's worth, it seems like Hunter's getting his shit together a little bit. We're gonna come to Hunter's defense
Mhm.
here in the next part of the show, but the again, not Joe's fault. And Joe, Joe has every family, every president had like a relative that was kind of fucked up. Carter's like brother was fucked up. Bill Clinton's brother was fucked up. There's always like some
George
black
W.
sheep.
Bush was the fucked up
Yeah,
brother,
George W.
right?
Bush was the fucked up one. Jebby was the like Jebby was supposed to be president, ended up being
Like,
George W.
didn't Barbara Bush even say that once, like
Yeah,
out
I
loud
think
and
she
on
said that on
purpose?
some
Oof.
interview or something that I always thought it would be Jeb.
That was the first time I actually felt bad for George W. Bush. I was like, "Oh, he makes a lot more sense
Do you
now."
remember Bill Clinton's like fuck up brother?
His
Like,
stepbrother or something, yeah.
yeah,
I
So
bet
like
he
he was like
does.
some redneck who was like, yeah.
To be fair, Billy got in enough of his own trouble to, distract from his brother's perils. So
There was a unanimous vote to open an impeachment inquiry, and I love that the Republicans are just like, "What? It's just an inquiry. We just want to know." Every Republican voted for it, including Ken Buck, who had been kind of shitting all over the idea of an impeachment inquiry. Apparently, Biden pissed him off,
you're
which is
so
why
fucking petty. You see, that's proof of how petty it is.
and
Apparently.
Buck is on his way out anyway. He's not running
Yeah,
for re-election, so he's kind of in. Ken Buck has been kind of the like burn it all down MAGA Republican, just doesn't give a fuck anymore.
yeah.
But apparently Biden was irritated that the White House had released a memo saying that they would not cooperate with an impeachment inquiry without an official vote. For some reason, that was enough to like get Buck upset at Biden, so he cast his vote
He's so stupid.
with it. But anyway, every Republican voting to open this, Troy Nels. Unfortunately, I have to share my name with this guy because he's a
Yeah.
complete creep. Admitted that the GOP impeachment of President Biden was so that Republicans could give Trump, quote, a little bit of ammo to fire back. And then on Wednesday, when he was asked what Republicans hoped to get out of the impeachment inquiry, all he said was, quote, all I can say is Trump 2024, baby.
Not even
End quote.
hiding that this is politically motivated, right? Their biggest criticism of the impeachments into Donald Trump was that they were politically motivated, right? Yet both yielded results that made the American people go, "Wait, what?" Right?
Yeah.
Even if they didn't win everybody over, and maybe a lot of people weren't fully convinced, but they at least raised an eyebrow, right? But nobody can figure this one out, right? And people will want to every time there's an impeachment. And luckily, you and me, we lived through a few. Right? Not many Americans can say they've lived through a few impeachments. Okay, but we are a lucky generation
We've
of
lived through
Americans.
75% of them because there's been 4. We've lived through 3.
Yeah, and some people on this planet and in this country have lived through 4, like what, 3 or 4, 4 or 5, 4 or 5, 4 or 5. There's been 5, right? Yeah, 5.
What, impeachments?
Yeah, Johnson, Clinton.
No, there's only 4.
No, 4, 4, yeah.
Johnson, Clinton, and then Trump twice. There's only 4.
Oh, that's right. Because oh my God, I did it too. I was counting
Nixon wasn't impeached. Yeah.
And my
Nixon was
brain
never
for like
impeached.
a hot second because the kids always land on Nixon. I'm like, no, he was never technically impeached. But you know what he was is they opened an inquiry. This is how far
They
it got
opened
with
an
Nixon,
inquiry and then he
okay?
resigned.
This is how far it got with Nixon. So, and that was, I think, where I was going with it for the lesson,
But
right? Is that he hasn't been impeached yet. So like the narrative that they're going to be pushing is, oh, Joe Biden's been impeached. Joe Biden's been impeached. No, he hasn't. And he probably won't be. But they are going to use America's not like lack of understanding on the difference between an impeachment inquiry and an impeachment charge, right?
Yeah.
Like this is the police asking your neighbors questions, right? And impeachment is I have to go to court.
Impeachment
right?
is an indictment. And they still don't understand the difference between impeachment and removal. They're still saying that Trump was never impeached because he wasn't removed from office. No, he was impeached twice. He was just not removed twice.
Maybe we'll do a deep dive on impeachment.
We should. Because this is going to get into this is going to get into the weeds of it. And again, Nixon, that was a different time. Like you always talk about, Republicans that had it with Nixon. It was Nixon 100% was going to be impeached and removed from office because Republicans, his own party, didn't give a fuck. Republicans were pissed as hell at Nixon, and they were
mainly
when all of it started to come to light. There was no party loyalty there. It was a different time because today Republicans would never ever do that. But back in the 70s, the Republican Party had it with Nixon, and it was basically a foregone conclusion that he was going to be booted out of office.
Yeah,
so he went ahead and resigned to try and save his legacy. But.
Barry Goldwater, like I don't like a lot of things that Barry Goldwater did, but he was the only one with integrity back then. Like he was the one who sat down with Nixon, and he's like, "I'm going to call the vote, and I can tell you how it's going to go. So this is what you're going to do, right? Where are those cojones, right?"
The interesting thing about this is. I don't know if this one is even going to be an impeachment because we have so many people. The McCarthy is leaving. Kevin McCarthy. That didn't even make our outline. Cathy. Kevin McCarthy is resigning.
Well, because to be fair, he's been kind of dead in the water.
Like, who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
The more important story there is that so many people are leaving. The Republican majority in the House is currently down to 2. When McCarthy leaves, it'll be down to 1. I mean, before there's going to be special elections and then they're going to fill some of those seats. But in the interim, their majority is down to 1. If somebody somebody goes into the hospital or is incapacitated or something, the Democrats can vacate the speaker and put in Hakeem Jeffries if they time it right. But I just don't know. I don't even know if they have enough votes to impeach Biden if it comes to that. First of all, they're not going to find any evidence. This isn't about evidence. This isn't about an actual impeachment. This is a political process. They're trying to placate their base and make Biden look bad.
Yeah.
But if it comes to them actually having an impeachment vote, I don't even know if they have the votes for it to even clear the House at this point.
Yeah. I don't think they're worried about it because, like I said, and like you, like I don't think it will. Like it won't get that far because they won't have anything to lean on. They're like, right.
It's like getting rid of abortion. They got rid of their best.
But no, because like that was where I was going next, right? Is like, California politics better than me, clearly, because you're like from there. Is there any chance that abortion flips Kevin McCarthy's seat in Bakersfield?
No, not in Bakersfield.
It's too gerrymandered, I assume.
It's too red. Bakersfield is like the reddest of the red.
Yeah. What about George? Because I know George Santos's seat is potentially
George Santos will flip. I think George Santos is going to go. George Santos's seat will go to a Dem. McCarthy's seat will stay with the GOP, so you'll have a 50-50 split.
And then who else?
I don't see a Dem winning in. I don't see a Dem winning in Bakersfield. Bakersfield is the reddest of the red.
Right, but that means that their majority, like once all the seats are filled, does that give them a permanent 3-seat majority, or could any of the other ones flip too? Because that's what I think will be really telling.
I don't think Buck's leaving. So it's confusing because some people are leaving like now, like McCarthy's quitting, and some people are just waiting to.
They're just waiting until the end of their term.
Like Buck's going to fill out his term. He's just not running again. McHenry's filling out his term, not running again. There's another one that's doing the turn. There's another one that just quit. So there's like 5 or 6 that are leaving. So it's going to be. I think the Republicans are going to lose the House next year.
I think so too.
There's no way that the Republicans are going to keep the House in 2024. They've already got they've got a bare bones majority, and they've done nothing with it. So.
Yeah, which is like kind of a little bit of a saving grace because we're all terrified of a Trump worst case scenario, right? But if Democrats can hold Congress, then a lot of what he thinks he can do can't be done,
I just think it's going to flip. I think the Democrats are going to take the House and the Republicans are probably going to take the Senate, unless there's like a massive, the Dem turnout is massive and we managed to squeak by in both houses again, like we did in 2020.
Maybe, but which seats are up?
Or flip it in 2020.
I had it written down the other day, and then I started my podcast office, and now I lost the paper I wrote it down on, and not lost. It's in a pile. Like it'll turn up again. But like, are there flippable Senate seats up? I think there are.
I haven't done a big Senate analysis. You mean flipping from Republican to Dem?
Yeah. Like, why do you think the Republicans are going to take the Senate back?
There's more Dems. There's more Dems up in toss-up areas.
Yeah, but
like
if
we're under the big ones are going to be Pennsylvania, Arizona, Montana. There's a couple others, but so there's more essentially there's more the math is in the Republicans' favor. There's more vulnerable Dem senators.
I mean, I suppose, but like if we're operating under the assumption that Roe is driving turnout.
That's true. That's my point. Is like I don't know. I have no idea. There could be a massive. I think this is the same as 2020 and 2022. Like we have to throw out all the metrics. Roe changed everything. Trump changes everything. There could be a massive Dem turnout. I have no idea.
I just had an idea. Okay, Troy, for another deep dive. I'm just plugging the deep dives here because I'm very excited that we get to do them again. We could plan one where we put our campaign hats back on, right? And we play electoral, like Cathy and Troy play Steve Kornacki in Just Buy Less Coffee deep dive on electoral politics. That could be fun. That. We'll wear khakis. I won't. I don't look good in khakis, but you get the idea, right?
I'll wear khakis. Yeah, we should definitely do that, especially as the election gets closer. We're going to be doing like nonstop election coverage.
I can't wait. Oh my god.
Iowa's a month out. We're running out of time, so we have a lot left on this. We're just gonna save some of this for next time because I really want to get into your deep dive here.
The world will still be on fire later.
Breaking news statement from Office of U.S. Senator Ben Cardin. I can't say this dude's name. Aiden Mace Shapersky. Is no longer employed by the U.S. Senate.
There's a shock.
We will have no further comment on this personal matter. So, Senate lingerie reaming guy got fired.
So, in the span of this episode, I both learned of this guy and heard he lost his job. You know what? There is a efficiency to news cycles sometimes. That's well done.
Yeah.
Well done. I get to blush at the beginning and end of the show for the same reason.
There's a lot of things you could do in the United States Senate. Having butt sex and lingerie
Stop.
in the judiciary room is not one of them.
Why are you this
Unfortunately.
way?
Unfortunately.
Crude
So
millennial
we're
humor. There it is.
Hunter Biden, one last thing. So Hunter Biden refused to testify. Back on Hunter, he refused to testify this week, and good for him. They were trying to screw him. They were trying to get him into a closed door deposition where they could cherry pick his testimony and put out little bits to make him look bad. But he said, "Fuck you." He was ready. He was willing to testify in an open hearing, but he did not testify. But let's just say, again, just to close on Hunter, like how shitty this dude is in the car crash that kills his wife and his sister.
No, his mother and his sister.
Yeah, like not his wife. I'm like, stupid.
Yeah.
His mother and his sister.
Yep.
Traumatized, crazy trauma. Gets involved in drugs. Brother dies from cancer. Beau Biden died from cancer. Has to live with the sort of like being the fuck up in the family because Beau Biden was the attorney general of Delaware and a Iraq war veteran. And then they decide, it's hard enough for regular people who are struggling with trauma and addiction, but then the Republicans decided to make Hunter Biden their number
personal
one
enemy. Yeah.
So poor guy. I mean, he's done a lot of fucked up things in his life, but you got to feel for the guy. Like, can you imagine the entire sort of like dirtbag MAGA apparatus dedicated to ruining your entire life?
Well, those ladies in Georgia did, and look what they
Yeah,
figured out how to do.
exactly.
And I think Hunter Biden has
the Freeman and Moss and the lives of the families in Sandy Hook that Alex Jones ruined and all this. Like, it's just terrible. These people are terrible.
It is. But you know what I have to say is like good for Hunter Biden, right? Because like you said, it seems like he's a little bit getting his shit together for now, at least, right? And I love this move, right? Because it simultaneously calls out how ridiculous their vendetta against him is and could shut down the impeachment inquiry against his dad because we know Americans to know, like, if there's two options available. You've been talking about Hunter Biden for fucking years, right? And now Hunter Biden's willing to tell all to Congress, but you want to put it behind closed doors? Like, what will Americans want here? What will Americans demand? Americans will want to watch the hearings. And what I know from studying Republicans my whole life is when Republicans have to put their hearings on television, things don't go well for them.
They're also hypocrites. Jim Jordan is still evading a subpoena for his role in January 6th.
That's its whole thing too, but my dog is literally like digging into my pillows so he can put his stinky butt on my pillows and sleep on my bed.
Rocky.
Yeah.
So we're gonna cover some Israel Gaza stuff probably next time. It's starting to really unravel, but we're out of time. So join us now on Patreon. The rest of this episode is going to be available for Patreon subscribers only. We're going to continue this conversation over there with Cathy's deep dive to all our non-subscribers. Thank you so much for joining us on the audio only version or on YouTube watching the video of Cathy's lobster face. So we will see everybody next time. Patreon subscribers will get access to the full uncut video. We're going to launch into the deep dive now. Thanks, everybody.